everyone. Yeah, so here's the video on ECON02 Homework number 5. I must say though, that this may be slightly unfinished. Okay, you see I've been racking my brain on potential answers for 1C and 2E, respectively. And I've still not got them. Okay, so this will be sort of my take on how I'm currently doing it. All the other questions, fine. It's just those two are not so great. So let's go over stuff. First of all, 1A. So, for the first question in entirety, you're allowed 300 words. Okay? You have first of all got to visit the ILO's website, which is the International Labour Organization, and go to the database. So what we want to do is we want to click on Data Catalog here. This will load up this web page here. You guys should see that. Let me just check you guys are seeing that. Looks good. Okay, so we've got this data set here. Okay, scroll down here. Okay, and you can search a lot. Okay, but what I do is you go to Country Profiles here. All right, go to Country Profiles, because we're doing things by country. Remember, you need 5 separate countries here. Okay, at least I believe that's what it says. Where is it? Yeah. So you want to calculate 5-year averages. So let's get an example. Say I wanted to pick the country of Bolivia. Yep. So I have Bolivia there. Okay. Now what I want from Bolivia is employment rate. Actually, what's better is to just press Go to Explorer on any one of these. Okay. And it brings you to this webpage. This webpage is a little easier to work with. So this is the participation rate by sex and age. It's given me here. Alright. So it's giving me stuff for different countries. Okay, we want to make sure we've got the correct one. Let's try unemployment, for example. The unemployment rate. So I've searched up for the unemployment rate here. Let's just use my example. So I went for Malaysia. So I type in Malaysia in country, and then I type in the year that I want. I want the closest year, which is 2019, okay, because remember 2019 is the closest year we're taking into account. We don't take 2020 and 2021 because they're tainted in the sample. So we want to start at 2019. So we go from 2019 and we use all the statistics all the way back to from 2019, 2018, all the way back to 2015, and we're going to average those, okay? I want to pick the largest group, okay? So don't pick something like 15 to 24, because that's going to give you the youth one, not the real one. You want to pick one that has sex of total, because we're doing everyone, and you want something with 15 plus, okay? That's normally what you'll get. 15 plus is the usual one, okay? And then you want to average all those values out across countries, okay? For an example of how to do that, let me just go into the calculator here, clear that. So, yeah, let's say I'm doing Albania then. Albania. So let's say I've got Albania for 2015. We've got 17.2% unemployment. It's a lot. Then I keep on increasing the year. I'm going to keep on adding the levels of unemployment. So we've got 15.4. We've got 13.6. Ah, Albania, you're doing much better. Oh dear, 13.6. Oh, that's 3.6, pardon me. Oh, come on now. There we go. Then let's do 2018. We get 12.3. Plus one more from 2019. 11.5. Okay, so we've added all those up. Those come to 70. Dividing that by 5 gives us the average unemployment rate, which is 14% over those years. Okay, so we're going to see the unemployment rate on average for a 5-year average, as the question states. You can see here, you want a 5-year average for the statistic. So we can see the average for Albania over 5 years in the unemployment rate is 5%. Now you want to repeat this for every country you're doing. So you've got, I picked largely Southeast Asian countries. So I've got Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand. Okay, and I've got the statistics for all of them. Now, for B, choose a visual representation of the data using spreadsheet or other software. I'd recommend you use Excel for this, mostly because it's a little easier to get a graph out of it. But here you can see, if I expand this image, that didn't work, did it? Wonder if I could expand it a little bigger. Full screen? No. Well, hopefully you guys can see that. Okay. As you can see here, I've got the orange line is the employment to population rate, which is employment rate, if anyone's confused. Employment rate and employment to population rate, or ratio, they're similar things, so go for them. You've got the participation rate in grey, and you've got the unemployment rate in blue. Here I've ordered the countries by their unemployment rate decreasing, just so it's an easier visual representation. As we can sort of see here, unemployment rate, as it goes down, it doesn't seem to be correlated with the participation rate or the employment rate as well. But yeah, well, we'd also expect employment rates to follow closer to participation rate the lower the unemployment, because if you think of the participation rate, it consists of all unemployed people and employed people, and the employment rate and the unemployment rate would combine to make the participation rate. Okay. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Yeah, of course, remember, averages won't exactly make it. Okay, remember they average out over years, so it's not like they're going to be exact figures. But that's sort of how it comes about. Anyway, so I've got that. I've also referenced where I've got the data here. You can also explain, yeah, what I said here is that you can see the participation rate is varying significantly here. So, for example, between the Philippines and Vietnam, there's about a 15% difference. You can explain that with a lot of factors. So you've got cultural environment, the age distribution, and the accuracy of census data in the country. A lot of things can affect the participation rate. Okay. Yeah, you want to describe the main differences here. Now, you want to use the variables represented by the curves along with data and evidence to propose possible reasons for the differences in the unemployment rates. Okay, so you specifically want to be using the WSPS model here. Okay, so you want to be proposing reasons why that's the case. Now, I'm not entirely sure, but we can say that each country has different price setting or wage setting curves. Notably, you can see that, in Indonesia, you have a lot of occupational mismatch and skill shortages. If we remember from chapter 9, labour productivity, when it goes down, that's going to shift the price setting curve down much more. So you're going to have a high level of unemployment in an economy with low skill. Okay, so that gives you a reason for Indonesia's possibly high unemployment rates in comparison to other countries. So that's one thing you could do. I'd probably recommend you do a bit more. This is 300 words, and a lot of it's taken up just on C. Of course, a little bit is taken up on B, but most of it is taken up on C. Okay, let's continue on to number 2 here. Okay, so number two here, it states 2 quotes at the start, which we'll get back to. And then it asks, referring to the balance sheet of a household and a commercial bank, explain how money is created when a bank makes a loan to a household, such as an overdraft loan. So, how this works is that the bank is issuing the loan to the individual. Now, to the individual on their balance sheet, everything's balanced. Okay, their assets are the money they have been borrowing, and their liabilities are the money they owe back. Okay, so it's all fairly equal here. They don't owe they're not increasing their net worth by getting a loan. However, the bank is. The bank essentially creates money by creating this new asset of which it is owed, which is in the value of the loan. So because it suddenly created this loan, it is now owed this money, which makes it an asset. This is how most banks will make money. They will create loans for people to pay back to them. So that's how they kind of get that. Let's see here. Yeah. So that's sort of how it works. Pardon me. Yeah, so because the bank is gaining an asset but no liability, it's increasing its own net worth in this case. So now we want to reproduce the table. As you can sort of see here, I've already done it. Can I open this up a bit? No. So you can use, quite helpfully, the, let me just show you. there is, I think it's in that one. No, it's not. It is in subunit 10.10. You've got these example balance sheets. Now this is very helpful in determining which one of your words goes to where, but some of them are quite obvious. So you can see here that our largest liability is deposits. So we're probably going to do that. Let me just open a new page here and just put that there. Balance sheets, 4 more groups, and there. Right, so you can see here that assets and liabilities are distributed in a very certain way. Okay, so we can see here that we've got the biggest section of liability, so that's going to be deposits. Okay, so that's what we can sort of assign. Now we've also got 2 other loans here. We've got 2 other words here: bank secured borrowing and bank unsecured borrowing. If we look at our sample sheet earlier, we can see that secured borrowing, or borrowing with collateral, is bigger than unsecured borrowing. So I put secured borrowing at the top, as you can see here, and then unsecured borrowing at the bottom. So that's how you get that. For assets, it's a little more complicated. We know that the biggest assets are going to be loans, specifically household loans. So we're going to put loans to households in that section. That's the main thing. Then we also see that the second largest one is, well, what is it on here? All right. It says wholesale repo lending. Okay. We could think of that as other financial instruments. Also, we could add up these 2 financial instruments on our asset sheet here. That kind of counts there. So 30 is going to be other financial instruments. The other 3 are a little more tricky. Okay. Loans to other banks is going to be 11 because it's somewhat in the middle. Okay, at least that was my guess. And then for the second lowest and lowest, we are told that we have cash and reserves left, and we have building and other fixed assets. So the fixed assets is going to be the lowest because it just involves the operation of the bank. The highest, though, the 8 million here, or the 8%, actually goes towards cash reserves. So you'll have cash reserves, financial instruments, that would be loans to banks, loans to households, and operational costs. Also to note here is that assets actually go down in order of liquidity. So you have the highly illiquid stuff, cash and other reserves, extremely liquid. You've got financial instruments, okay, which is going to be quite liquid. You've got stuff like loans to banks, which is fairly illiquid. Then you've got loans to households, which is quite illiquid. And then you've got buildings and stuff like that, which is quite highly illiquid. So that kind of shows you there, just goes down in liquidity. Okay, looking at the next one, I need to explain what causes a bank run. So what causes a run on the bank? So if a lot of people think a bank is going to fail all at once, then they're all going to try and take out money from a bank. Now, as you guys probably know, the bank normally does not have all that money on hand. Okay, it does not have cash stored in. It does not have enough cash stored on hand to meet the demands of everyone that comes in and asks for their money. Okay, so this is where we'll differentiate between base money and bank money. Base money refers to pure cash. Okay, it refers to the monetary base, which is why it's called base money, which is physical currency and other physical like assets and stuff like that. All right, bank money is money that's created by the bank, okay, when it issues loans. Okay, this doesn't necessarily, it's not the same as base money. Okay, and the bank can still have a lot of bank money while having no base money. Okay, it doesn't matter if the bank doesn't have any bank money, it just matters if it has base money at this point. Okay, and now we also need to talk about liquidity and solvency. Now liquidity is the state at which your assets can be transferred into just cash. So if something is cash, it's highly liquid. If it can be transferred into cash in like an hour, it's quite liquid. If it's something like a house that requires a lot of time and a lot of negotiation to settle on a price, it's highly illiquid because it takes a while to get it to pure cash, pretty much. And solvency refers to the fact that if a bank is essentially solvent, means you are able to pay off your debts. Okay, but insolvency means you're unable to. So for example, if your liabilities exceed your assets, that you're declared insolvent because you're unable to pay them off. Okay, I believe that's what I said here, roughly. Yeah. The third question is also asking what the leverage ratio is here. We can see that the leverage ratio in our sample was 36.4, quite high. But now our leverage ratio is about 6.25. Yes, so we got 6.25 as a leverage ratio. This would imply to us that the leverage ratio is smaller. Okay, therefore, an institution has a lower probability of getting wiped out by any liability. Okay, so the smaller the ratio is, the less the chance is of getting wiped out by a change in liabilities, like a sudden increase in borrowing from the bank. It has a lesser probability of getting wiped out. D. So for D, it asks, drawing on your answer, hold on, what limits the desire of banks to create money? So, for a bank to create money with a loan, okay, it needs to accept a certain amount of risk. Default risk is the most common one. Okay, so you have default risk. Let me just search this up just to make sure I'm getting less clear. Default risk. It's this. So this one? Yeah. Liquidity? Yeah. So default risk means that whenever I'm going to issue a loan to someone, I don't know if they're going to default on that loan or not, okay? And the more loans I issue, the more money I have under this sort of people that don't pay back the loan, okay? So if we come to a point where we have a lot of people defaulting on loans, then we're essentially going to lose that section of assets because we have all these assets that we had and now we know they're worthless. Okay, so the assets could massively shrink, which can sometimes lead to liabilities overtaking assets, causing insolvency again. So the bank doesn't want to issue so many loans because it's very well aware that if it does, it's opening itself up to many, many more risks by just giving away loans. Okay, because you don't know if someone is going to pay back that loan. Now talking about E asks us to evaluate both quotes here. So E specifically asks, drawing on your answers to the previous parts of this question, provide a critical interpretation of the two quotes at the beginning. So the first quote says, there are plenty of magic money trees in Britain. They are called banks. Since modern money is simply credit, banks can and do create money literally out of nothing, simply by making loans. This is partially correct. Banks do create money out of nowhere from making loans, but it's not as simple. As we discussed in D, okay, banks need to not create too many loans, otherwise they could risk going insolvent. So banks rein in the amount of loans they issue as to not create too much money. There's also an inflationary effect to it. If they're creating too much money in the economy, then it can lead to sort of an inflationary spiral in terms of prices. So you don't want to issue too many loans, not only because it's risky for the bank, but also because it's risky for society. Okay, and so it's calling it a bit of like a magic money tree is a bit disingenuous because there's a lot of difficulty in sort of changing money. Yeah, there's a lot of difficulty in actually creating so many loans as to do that because it's not an instant effect either. We also have the second quote here. If banks were literally able to create money out of nothing, why do we need to bail them out? Now, my idea of why you bail banks out is that they can't create the money for themselves at this point. So they can create money in normal circumstances, but they can't create money for something like a financial crisis or something like that because they're not able to generate a loan in that market because nobody's going to take that loan. Okay? So what you want, so what banks do is they get assets, okay, to help them get back on their feet. Okay? Now, the bank takes these assets and these liabilities. Yeah. The bank takes these assets essentially, and this allows it to not be in what was it? Yeah, allows it to not be insolvent for a little bit, okay, which can help get it back on its feet, okay. Plus, creating loans is a long-term process, okay? Creating a loan and finding enough people to have loans that would adjust your model would be an extremely time-consuming process. So that's why banks can't really just do it like that, okay? They can create the money. It just doesn't take long enough to be effective. Okay, I think that's it. Sorry if I couldn't be much more helpful in this video. I'm quite tired. Yeah. Hopefully I was helpful though. Mine isn't done. I'm still going to try to finish this in time. Hopefully I should be putting out a ECON04 video soon. So maybe look out for that. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.